Hi, everybody, and welcome to our broadcast, the Brain Function series from the Togetherness Media, Los Angeles. This is Mohammad, Nami, medical and cognitive neuroscientist. And in the fifth episode of our discussions here, we would be talking about another clinically important and fundamentally significant topic in neuroscience, which is neurodevelopment. And neurodevelopment is important on its own, but when the process of neurodevelopment is not ending well, we might be facing another key issue, which is neurodevelopmental disorder. And we've chosen this topic partly based on the feedback that we've received from you. We know that you wanted to know more about this, and we're kind of confident that everyone who is interested would do some independent reading about the topic. And at the same time, we've chosen this topic based on the significance of social and clinical burden of the disease at different levels. We receive many people, parents, and people coming to our doors, and they're complaining about having this ongoing challenge with a loved one or their kids with neurodevelopmental, intellectual, or behavioral disorder. And they're spending a lot of energy, passion, time, resource, and money, and they take their kids and the loved one from this center to another center, receiving ongoing clinical services. Sometimes, yes, fortunately, we're able to help them to regain some capacity, some processes, and by time they would be able to have a better life in terms of quality of life and also their functionality and activity of daily living. But in some instances, neurodevelopmental disorders tend to last for a person's life. But this does not mean that we need to, be hopeless. In many occasions, whatever the cause of the neurodevelopmental disorder is, we can do something to increase the state of functionality by pursuing the correct approaches to help them have a better plasticity and neuroplastic change in the brain and formation of new synapses and neural connectivity. Before we move forward discussing about the importance of the context here, let's talk about the significance of the first 3 years of life. Those first 1,000 days of the beginning of a life is critical in a sense that the brain will gain the capacity of forming new neurons or generating new neurons. So the number of neurons are, is incredibly increased by magnitude. On the other hand, from the age of 3 to 9, the brain will develop the capacity of reforming, myelinating, and also making connections. By myelination, we mean that the isolation around the body, the shaft of the neuron, axons. So this helps the better exchange of the electrical discharges between neurons, all right? So from the age of 3 to 9, the brain will get this connectomics and the chemical dynamics, the genomics, and also the protein buildup in the brain. They're all getting optimized in the way that we are exposing our brain and our mental self to the surrounding. And this is the way that we are developing the brain function in terms of sensory, motor, also cognitive, behavioral, and emotional perspectives. And from the age of 9 to 16 and afterwards, well into the adulthood, then the brain will do this fine-tuning and pruning of the unwanted connections. So the brain will just get close to the final version of this, it's project, if you would like, put it like it. But the project of the brain is an unfinished one. So the notebook of the brain is still open. We can do some further writing to that. We can jot new information down into that. And by the time the brain will get even more plastic, and we can continuously develop new skills and improve the functionality by time. So, getting back to the context, we got to know about the definition of the neurodevelopmental disorders. The neurodevelopmental disorders are a group of disorders, in fact, that they affect the development of the nervous system. They'll lead to abnormal brain function, which may affect the emotion or learning ability and self-control and memory. There are many different reasons behind it. Might primarily be a genetic disorder, but if something is genetically defined, this does not mean that we're a victim of our gene. We can do some changes to improve the condition. The social deprivation is an important defining issue with genetic disorders, as we highlighted. Also, the immune dysfunction, the infectious diseases, the metabolic disorders and nutrition and physical trauma, and the insufficiency in placental delivery of the blood and oxygen to the fetus. These are the things which would cause the neurodevelopmental disorders. So there are many of the neurodevelopmental intellectual behavioral disorders being recognized so far. One of the most famous and prevalent ones is the attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. ADHD, and I know that many parents are facing this issue with their kids, and they really want to know how they're going to help their child and how they're going to stay away from using medication, Ritalin, amphetamines, and something of that sort, and just go for behavioral cognitive therapies to make the process even more, smooth. And we also have the verbal developmental delay, or the VDDs. We used to call this kind of disorders as SLI, or specific language impairment. Nowadays, we're calling DLD, or developmental language disorders. Also, communication, speech, or language disorder might be affecting the expressive or communicative expressive language disorder, or fluency disorder, and also pragmatics like a social communication disorder or a speech sound disorder, if you would. But some other kind of verbal predicaments might be based on the receptive language. The motor disorders are a whole range of different kind of things that we're currently facing, the stereotypic movements, and also the tic disorders, and the apraxia problem with fine-tuning the movements and something of that sort. These are critically important, because when they merge, when we have the combination of verbal developmental delay and motor developmental delay, then we might be having global developmental delay, and that cause even more issues and hassles in terms of helping the subject with better functionality and quality of life by time. Some issues with neurodevelopmental disorders, they stem and they root in neurogenetic causes, such as Fragile X syndrome. We all know about Down syndrome and Rett syndrome and hypogonadotropic hypogonadal syndromes and so on. But we got to bear in mind that there's no term as mental retardation. No one is mentally retarded, but they might have intellectual disability and also some kind of delay in development. So we talk about neurodevelopmental delay, or NDD. We're not stigmatizing, we're not labeling the people with mental retardation, so they're way back from the other peers and there's no hope, they are hopeless. No, it's not the case. So we need to help them with whatever we can. And we have emerging technologies, we have emerging science, and, which is helping us have a better grasp and understanding how to help these people as much as possible. And traumatic brain injury might be a cause for this, and also the intoxication, the cerebral palsy, some disorders due to neurotoxicants such as fetal alcohol syndrome, and heavy metals such as exposure to lead or chromium or platinum or hydrocarbons like a dioxin, or PCBs and medications, or illegal drugs like cocaine and other substances. When mothers are exposed to those kind of illicit drugs, or when we have this pollutants in the brain, in the air, like the pesticides, like everything. We have the roof gardens these days, and we're just spreading the pesticides everywhere. And when the pregnant women, they are just ingesting or smelling this kind of thing. So having those kind of inhaled, then they might be negatively hampering the neurodevelopment of the brain of the fetus intrauterine. So there are lots of things to talk about it. And what I'm going to conclude this part with you, and definitely would be very happy to receive your questions and comments on that, is that what should we do to prevent this? If we have a kid with neurodevelopmental disorder, genetic malfunction, the arrangements, we need to do counseling for the next gestation. I mean, the parents need to go for counseling, number one. Number two, the nutrition and the sensory interaction, also the sensory inputs is important as well. The first 3 years is critical. We need to be sure about the optimal amount of sensory exposure and also cognitive inputs, and everything should be there. As we said, if there's a medical problem, we need to seek the medical advice for that before late. If there is something not right and the kid is not on the neurodevelopment curve, then we need to ask and seek medical advice. And let's talk to them, let's play with them, let's help them see the world and experience things on their own sensory system. So by this, we're going to have smarter, more functional and capable children. And when children are capably performing, we can expect better performance in their adolescence, in their adulthood, and also even when we may expectedly be facing even healthier older adults. And yeah, so these are all stemming in our neurodevelopment in some ways. And thank you for listening to this part, and we hope that in the later discussions we'll be touching more in depth about different aspects of this important issue and other related topics. Appreciate that, and keep well.
Togetherness Media. Togethernessmedia.com